Good morning and welcome to Born Social's final event in our Social First brand series, The Full Funnel. So we've hosted a number of sessions around our thinking on social first brand, channel clusters, building with communities, scaling subcultures. So this morning is the final piece of that social first brand puzzle. The other events and slides are all available online on our website. If you missed those, go and check them out. So this morning you've got myself, I'm Executive Client Services Director here at Born Social. You've got Liam, our Senior Account Director, and Em, our Paid Media Manager, and we're going to take you through the content that we've got prepped for this morning's session. So before I get into kind of why we're here, what we're talking about, and what we're going to be going through, just a little bit of housekeeping. So we've got about 45 minutes of content to get through, so leaving us 10 to 15 for Q&A. At the end, you'll see the little Q&A feature, which I'm sure after a year and a half of Zoom, everyone's familiar with. But if you send the questions in, I can go through them while the guys are speaking, and we'll pose them at the end. If you've got a more specific question that you don't want to share on this morning's session, please just drop us an email on shout@bornsocial.co.uk and we can get back to you. All of the event slides and a recording from this morning will be sent to you afterwards if you've signed up. So please feel free to share those with anyone that wasn't able to make it this morning. So what are we here to talk about? Hopefully you're all here to hear about full funnel strategy. We know that it's really crucial for brands to balance that long-term brand building with short-term sales activations. But for so many brands, those two things end up fighting against each other, whether that be for budget or priority or even internal attention. But in reality, we know that they need to work together. And we at Born, we really believe that social provides the environment and the tools to do both of those things very well, which is part of the thinking around full funnel strategy. But this morning, we've chosen to focus on the role that we believe social commerce will play in this, and how it challenges the current perception of what full funnel strategy is, and why it's so important to consider it now. So it's been causing a bit of a stir. It's definitely been a buzzword of the last kind of few months. So hopefully from this morning, we're going to offer some clarity around what it is and how you can implement it and what it can do for your brand. So running order of this morning, Liam's going to kick us off by outlining what do we actually mean by social commerce as full funnel strategy, and why are we talking about it now? It's not brand new, but it's certainly on the agenda at the moment. So what's going on in the world and across the platforms themselves that means establishing a social commerce strategy is really key, and why it challenges that traditional view of full funnel strategy. And then Emily is going to talk you through the ways in which you can implement this, from small tactical gains to bigger brand shifts. We'll be sharing best practice to get those kind of creative juices flowing and give you some tangible things that you can take away and implement yourself. And of course, as mentioned, we've got time for Q&A at the end. So probably enough from me. I will pass over to Liam to kick us off with what is social commerce.
Thanks, Abby, and morning, everyone. So yeah, I wanted to I guess start by looking at what social commerce actually is, because as Abby kind of alluded to, it's a bit of a buzzword that gets bandied around a lot, but in reality it's quite a broad term that covers a few different things. So defining it is really important, and one of the ways I think we can do that is to look at the contrast between social commerce and traditional e-commerce. So I guess on the one hand you've got e-commerce, which, you know, as the name suggests, is just selling online in general, usually through clicking through to a website or a branded app and leaving that social environment. Social commerce, on the other side, is a user experience that kind of goes all the way from discovery through consideration to purchase without ever leaving that social environment. So completing the whole digital journey on social. I guess you can kind of think about it as a bit of a closed loop, you know. And as you can kind of imagine, to do that well, you've got to do lots of different things well across the journey. It's not really simply a case of just adding shoppable tags to your Instagram posts, as some people might kind of be led to believe. So essentially anything that combines content, community and shopping within a social platform is what kind of the strict definition of social commerce is. In reality, though, as is often the way, the lines aren't really that clean cut, and there's not really like a binary divide between the two. The boundary's a lot more blurry, and it tends to be in that blurry space in the middle that brands tend to play, really. Often starting small, integrating, some of the principles of social commerce, and then getting better at it as they learn more and test different things out. I think the key thing to kind of help reframe how you think about social commerce is that it's a fluid and broad theme rather than a feature that you can kind of switch on or off. And actually in the UK, it's currently not possible to check out in-app on any of the social apps. That's only really available in the US and China, where the social commerce offering is a lot more advanced. So clicking through to the site or somewhere else external will still be the typical purchase journey. It's more about kind of how you can start to integrate social commerce products into your campaigns and always on to allow you to start bringing products closer to social, even if that ultimately leads you to buy on site. And this starts to do some interesting things. I think primarily you can start to introduce products much further up the funnel. And in fact, you can even start to think about your funnel more fluidly as one holistic kind of totality, rather than a really segmented awareness, consideration, purchase journey that often takes a lot of time to get through. If we're talking about a fluid approach to our funnel and using social commerce products to serve entertaining product-led content, then we can actually get people from discovery all the way through to purchase, potentially even in one piece of content. And it's really the brands that are thinking about a fluid funnel who are going to win in this space, because I think they're the ones that realize that the power of social commerce is not in isolation, it's how it integrates into all other activity. Products no longer just isolated to that final part of the journey, it's integrated throughout. And that's where we can bring brand and performance marketing much closer together, whereas traditionally they often sit quite separately. But why are we talking about this now? Well, I guess firstly, it's something that we're being asked about a lot by clients at the moment, which tends to be a pretty good indicator that it's something that we should be talking about. But also, I think it's really relevant to this moment in time specifically for kind of a few reasons. Firstly, and probably most obviously, we know last year pushed us all online for socializing, shopping, and everything in between. So it's not really surprising that we saw a 46% increase in the amount of money being spent in the UK on online retail, which was the single biggest increase since 2008. And I guess given no one can leave the house to shop, that probably seems pretty obvious. But the key thing is whether this trend will be maintained as we start to open back up. And from what we've seen, the early indicators seem to be suggesting that it will. E-commerce accounted for half of all UK retail in Q1 this year. And obviously, we've still had some restrictions in place throughout that time. But even in periods, last year and the beginnings of this year, where things have been pretty open, those e-commerce figures have stayed pretty stable. So it really does seem like this accelerated shift into more digital sales that we've seen over the last year is something that's here to stay, and definitely something we're going to be keeping a close eye on as the economy continues to kind of open back up. Then added to this, we know that the platforms have been responding. There's been a flurry of new releases and functions over the last year. We've had shops on Facebook and Instagram. We've also had, shoppable tags and formats rolled out across most of the platforms now and continuing to happen, which kind of bring that product and brand together much more closely, like I talked about at the top, allowing shopping to integrate into entertainment and more engaging formats. And Emily's got some really good examples later on of how brands have been using that to great effect. And then in the US, we've also had the rollout of in-platform checkout, which allows that seamless payment across the whole Facebook ecosystem. And it is worth saying, this isn't just a Facebook move. I think one of the things that's really interesting about social commerce is just the scale of opportunities in the space. It's pretty staggering, and all of the platforms are making some sort of play in that direction. Clearly it's very front and center with Instagram, with shops and shoppable products integrated into the feed, Instagram TV and stories. And Facebook has that really clear role of kind of housing digital storefronts and catalogs, all supported by Messenger, which kind of adds that layer of customer service. But if you look at what Snapchat is offering, they seem to be going really hard on bringing together AR and shopping with the ability to kind of try products on virtually. Again, Emily's got a really good example of that later on. And then alongside that, they're kind of introducing vertical video and dynamic ad formats that integrate products like the one you see in the middle of the screen here for the Adidas Ultra Boosts. And actually, I was just reading this morning that they're also looking to release the first shoppable show. There's going to be an entertainment series about streetwear that you can also shop. So clearly something that they're putting a lot of resource into. And then I think Pinterest too is really interesting because it's always kind of been a platform that's centered around inspiration and discovery. So, you know, adding like shoppable pins and catalogs, they're able to bring that natural discovery behavior of their users together with actual sales. And I mean, is it even social if you don't talk about TikTok in 2021, which probably more than any of the other platforms really has commerce woven into its DNA. You know, we've seen the viral products taking off in a way that we've not really seen with the other platforms. You just have to look to, you know, the Little Moons craze or those leggings, which, you know, does anyone even know what brand they are? I just kind of know them as the TikTok leggings, which is kind of interesting in itself. But yeah, TikTok's clearly has a strong heritage of linking entertainment with sales. And we know that further integration is fast coming with the Spotify partnership. You know, we've seen them testing live shopping with Walmart back in December. And it really feels like rolling out social commerce products is high on the platform's agenda, even if they're keeping it quite close to their chest, exactly what that is going to look like. Luckily for us, though, as I'm sure some of you will have seen, there was a leaked pitch deck that did the rounds earlier this year, which kind of gives us some clues as to where they're going to be heading with some new ad options that they're looking to roll out. So within that deck, they laid out collection ads, which will let brands combine their product catalog listings and branded videos in order to give, I guess, guide users to relevant products directly from those video clips, as well as dynamic product ads, which will automatically retarget users with relevant products according to their activities in the advertisers' apps and websites, much like how dynamic product ads currently work on Facebook. And then promo tiles are going to let advertisers add customizable sales and promotional alerts to their in-feed ads, while showcase tiles will see creators promoting product in their videos with the relevant product thumbnails at the bottom part of the screen. And you can kind of see an example of what that looks like on the bottom right here. And actually, these options are really similar to TikTok's social commerce offerings in China, in the Chinese version of the app, Douyin, where actually the majority of their income is generated by in-app purchase rather than ads. So potentially shows you where things might be headed over here too. And then I think, you know, on top of all of this, we probably have the most compelling reason to be talking about this now, and that is, of course, the iOS 14 update, which in our view is really just going to supercharge this whole pivot by the platforms who are really going to be pushing harder than ever, I think, to make social commerce grow, because they're literally going to be incentivized to make it work. And that's kind of because as soon as people leave their app, you know, unless they've opted in to allow that tracking, which the initial data shows is quite a small minority of people, they're going to lose visibility of what that person is doing. So they can't use all of that rich data to optimize their algorithms that like they've, you know, been doing for the last few years. So I guess keeping everything within the platform takes on a whole new level of importance in this context. So yeah, I guess to summarize where we are and why this is so relevant, you know, we've got these macro shifts happening in how people shop, that favor online, meeting the platforms that are already growing in this space and now being incentivized to make social commerce work, all of which I guess ultimately means that it's not just going to be kind of a nice to have for D2C brands, but a really key consideration that needs to be taken really seriously, I think. And now going to hand you over to Emily, who's going to show you some brands that are already moving heavily into this space, and how you can start doing things today that are going to help you benefit from this trend.
Brilliant, thanks Liam. Hi everyone, as Liam said, I'm really excited to be talking you through the 3 principles of social commerce today. So I'm going to cover the problems that each of these principles tackle, and I'm going to introduce some tactics for you to take away and start thinking about for each one of the principles. I have tried to go for something for everyone here. So tactics from just dipping your toe in all the way through to how big brands can fully embrace leaning into social commerce in some really innovative and exciting ways, starting with the first principle, which is, drum roll, please. Oh, frictionless experience. Oh, or all of my slides. I'm ruining my big reveal. Frictionless experience. So if you're a website owner, you are probably obsessed with your load time, and that would be for good reason. So 40% of shoppers report that they abandon a website that takes more than 3 seconds to load, and even a 1 second delay has been shown to lead to a loss in conversions. So it's clear that convenience is really more important to shoppers than ever before. And then when you couple this with a kind of collective decrease in the ability to focus, which I'll be touching on later, that need for a smooth path from discovery to conversion becomes even more essential. And that's really where frictionless experience comes in. So frictionless experience does what it says on the tin, really. It's about removing as many of those hurdles as possible and shortening or making easier that path from discovery to purchase, using the features available to you on the social channels that you have a presence on. Technically, as Liam said, in the UK, we can't get in-app checkout yet. So this is thanks to kind of various data and privacy laws in the UK, which I'm sure Facebook will worm their way around eventually, as they always do. But in the meantime, this means that we need to take them right up to that point where they check out on the website and make this journey as easy as possible in-app before they get there. And exactly how we do that is where we can get creative. So in the last year, I have not been able to be involved in a conversation about brands that are killing it on social without mentioning Gucci. I am obsessed with them. They are kind of industry leaders in jumping on platform innovations and creating brilliant social first content that doesn't just look great, it sells as well. Which brings me on to the example on the slide. So back in 2020, Snapchat launched their first campaign using their new shoppable AR technology in conjunction with Gucci. They created this AR shoe try-on filter, which enabled Snapchatters to purchase Gucci shoes directly from the lens via a Shop Now button. So you can see from the videos on the screen that Snapchatters would open the lens, they'll point the camera at their feet, and then they can swipe through a range of Gucci trainers to see what they look like on their feet, and then click through and purchase on the website once they've chosen a pair that they liked. So I think this is cool because not only did they design the filter to obviously increase conversions, Gucci, one of their business goals at the moment is to cut down on their environmental impact. And what they were finding was that they had a really high rate of product returns, which was particularly exacerbated by the pandemic for obvious reasons, because when people can't try something on before they buy it, they're more likely to return it, and this was increasing Gucci's carbon footprint. So the theory was that if they can, sort of help them to try on these shoes and give them an impression of what they're like before they buy them, they'll cut down this return rate. I think this was really smart, and it came out at exactly the right time, really, because the pandemic, as we've seen, massively accelerated online shopping. And whilst retail is open for business once more in the majority of countries, this filter came at a time when the pandemic really rendered physical product testing a complete thing of the past. I think even now, with the shops back open, shoppers are still, or some shoppers are potentially a little more cautious when it comes to visiting physical stores. So if you've got the budget and the bravery, then I think AR try-on filters could be a really brilliant route to explore if you have one of these physical products that potentially need some testing before purchasing. They're also not just a gimmick either. So Snapchat have reported that conversion campaigns that include a shoppable AR lens see a 2.4 times higher action intent lift compared to action driving campaigns without them. But if you're looking for something a little easier to implement that you can get started with right now, the tactic for frictionless experience is Instagram shops. So these launched in summer of 2020 as well, and they are an immersive full screen storefront that enable businesses to kind of build their brand story and drive product discovery at the same time. So users can go in, browse your product catalog, click through to learn more details about a product or bookmark it for later, and then head to your site and complete their checkout. So very simply, if you want to get started with Instagram shops, you're going to need a product catalog, Instagram shopping setup, and some cover imagery and collection names. Once you've got all these things, you need to head to Commerce Manager, which you can really easily navigate to through Business Manager. And you'll see really simple step-by-step instructions that walk you through setting up your Instagram shop. Once you've done this, your shop will go into a review for a couple of days, and then once it's been approved, it will appear on your Instagram profile, and then also that shopping explore tab on the Instagram users Instagram page. I think social commerce, as Liam touched on, is clearly a huge priority for Facebook and Instagram. As anyone who's clicked the shop button when they meant to click explore when that update first rolled out, including me, will be able to testify. So you can expect to see further updates and functionality coming to Instagram shops throughout this year and beyond, I would imagine. Another cool thing that you can do with Instagram shops is you can also add people that have interacted with your Instagram shop as you can create them as an audience in your ads manager, and you can retarget this audience as part of your other paid social marketing activities. So I think it's kind of like a truly full funnel approach and feeds into your other campaigns and benefits your holistic performance as well. So not working in silos. The example on the right is the jewelry brand Soma. So you can see they've got these beautiful cover images for their collections, and then when you click through, they reveal the individual products which you can bookmark or go on to purchase. I think a really nice thing about the Soma shop is that when customers have questions or need support as they browse, Soma directed them to Messenger or Instagram direct messages, which means they can kind of stay in their shopping experience without navigating away from it, which provided this sort of like seamless in-app contact method that made communication really easy, which I think is a great social first touch, and also something that wouldn't be that difficult to implement either. So between November and December last year, Soma had 52,000 visits to this Instagram shop, and they garnered 6,000 purchases through it. They track this all through Commerce Manager, which is where you will be able to see the results and the performance of your Instagram shop. So if you have any concerns about how trackable this is, it is 100% trackable. It's all taking place in Commerce Manager. You can get insights about your customers. You can see your most popular items on your shop, and you can also track the purchases that have been made through this Instagram shop journey. So shops are a really easy way of removing some of that friction from the purchase journey. Although if I'm thinking of myself as a shopper, not a brand for a second, when you have the ability to check out with Face ID on your mobile phone, potentially that purchase journey might be a little bit too easy. Maybe that's just me. So moving on to our second principle, which is shopping as entertainment. So in recent years, our attention has become more and more fragmented thanks to competition across devices, platforms and formats, which these two tweets that recently went viral demonstrate really neatly. So it's clear that we are second and potentially even third screening more than ever. And when you add to this a pandemic that apparently brought about a 300% increase in people Googling how to get your brain to focus. That's definitely one of those Googles. You've got this kind of attention scarcity issue that's going to need some seriously social first tactics to navigate. So that's where shopping as entertainment comes in. What we mean by this is kind of presenting products in a way that is imaginative and engaging, that's going to cut through noise, and we want people to pay attention for long enough to consider and then eventually purchase from our brand. So I think a really obvious but powerful example of this is try on TikToks, Instagram TVs and Reels, like this one on the screen from H&M. So I think it's brilliant for a couple of reasons. I think it feels like a really natural try on reel that is already a really popular format on the platform, but with just like a couple of tweaks that make it a really great example of social commerce. So they've got the product IDs listed in the caption. All the products are tagged and shoppable. You can click through to the site and purchase. I think, as with this example, shopping as entertainment works best when the content does feel like something a social media user would already be naturally watching and entertained by, which is exactly what this reel is. I also think trial reels are brilliant because, just like we saw with that Gucci filter, they bring this element of physicality back to products that we've been missing for so long thanks to the pandemic. And then aside from those pandemic related benefits, when items of clothing are presented as part of an outfit, people are more likely to purchase more than one item. So there's multiple benefits to presenting your products like this. This brings me on to the tactic, which is live shopping. So this was also released in 2020, busy year for shoppable features. And this is basically exactly the same as going live on Instagram or Facebook, but with the added benefit of featuring your products on the screen as you're talking through them, and your viewers can click through and learn more about them or go on to purchase them. So for Instagram shopping, you're going to need a product catalog. When you're in Commerce Manager, there's a big fat button that says enable live shopping. Unsurprisingly, you're going to need that turned on. And then you're also going to need a presenter for your Instagram Live. If you have all of the above, it's super simple. You would go live in the exact same normal way that you would normally go live on the platform. But when you're setting it up, you'll tap shopping, you'll choose the collection that you want to feature throughout your live. And then as you're rolling, you can pin the products to the screen as you're talking about them. They will appear for the users, and then they can start shopping from the tagged products. I think that Instagram Live shopping is a really brilliant and potentially at the moment quite underutilized format that you could be considering. Main reason being because of the ability to have a host for your Instagram Live and giving a face to your brand. So I think the right on brand hosts can be really entertaining, but they can also be super informative and answer questions in that live chat as they come up. I think it's super engaging. It gives a personality to your brand, and is an opportunity also to show product in action. So the example on the right is by a skincare and makeup brand called U Beauty, and I think you can really see why this format would work so well for them. Buying skincare and makeup on the internet is notoriously challenging. That is me speaking as somebody who has 5 shades of completely wrong foundation bought over the past year. Buying makeup on the internet is difficult. You can't see the textures, you can't see the tones. So by showing the product in action on this Instagram Live, you're kind of taking away that confusion and it's showcasing a product that makes it more likely for people to purchase because they can see it before they've bought. I think that also means that it fulfills the frictionless experience principle as well. So usually in, I guess, your more traditional e-commerce shopping experience, if people had a question about a product before they're buying it, they might have to navigate off that shopping page to an FAQ page, or if it's not there, they might have to email customer service and potentially wait a couple of days for a reply, by which time they might have actually purchased from a competitor, which we absolutely do not want to happen. But within Instagram Live, by answering the questions as they come up in the live chat, that barrier to purchase is completely eliminated. And then finally, onto our third principle, which is product integrated. So thanks to advanced algorithms that these new social platforms have and more opportunities for virality than ever, in 2021, we're seeing this consistent trend of products receiving more hype at times than the brands behind them do. So if you take TikTok and you combine the kind of discovery nature of the platform with its occasionally rogue algorithm, you have this really powerful recipe for impulse purchases. So just like those TikTok leggings that Liam talked about earlier, if you don't know what they are, I'd recommend you have a Google. They have some very impressive product benefits. But yeah, with those TikTok leggings, everyone knows what they are, but I bet almost no one can name where they're from. So these cult products can potentially seem like they are more of a natural fit on TikTok than they are other social platforms such as Facebook or Instagram. However, I really think it pays to start thinking product first across your full funnel, especially when you consider all those commerce-centric new features that the platforms are constantly churning out and are likely to continue to churn out. So instead of reserving this kind of product feature focus for the bottom of the funnel, when you keep product in mind, when you create content for all stage, this will enable you to get more from less. So that will allow you to get results from your asset, whatever position of the funnel it sits in. Which brings me on to my example. So I think when we talk about heroing product features or product benefits, there can be a tendency to conjure up this idea of a very direct response feeling ad, but this just doesn't have to be the case anymore. So I've got two slightly vogue examples that I'm going to take you through in a second, but I think both are really great demonstrations of how to hero a product in a way that doesn't feel overly salesy. So when it feels natural, featuring your product in what you may have previously considered, I guess, a brand building piece of content leaves you with this one fluid funnel with assets that can return you reach and engagement as well as sales and revenue rather than one or the other. So we're not thinking about them in silo anymore. So on the left, I think I am stretching the term social commerce a tiny bit here, but this is the Amazon Badger on TikTok. He has this huge series called Amazon Products That You Need, where he demonstrates these kind of cool under the radar products from the platform that you can then buy through the links that he shares on his TikTok profile. I don't think it's the case that this is a direct partnership with Amazon. I would imagine it's more of an affiliate marketing setup, but you can really easily picture a brand teaming up with a content creator like this to review their products in TikToks that will likely garner hundreds of thousands of engagements. So this Amazon Badger man has 1.6 million TikTok followers. So you're not only going to be able to build up that engagement, but you're also likely going to be able to drive purchases at the same time. And then on the right, we've got this reel from Zara featuring Tika the Iggy. If you don't know who she is, you have to look at her TikTok called I Had So Many Cute Outfits That I Couldn't Wear. It was one of my favorite TikToks from 2020. So Zara teamed up with Tika to model their dog wear range. I didn't know that they had one either, but apparently they do. And a reel that's like really cute and entertaining, but directly links you to the products that she is wearing as well. So I think both of these examples hero the product rather than the brand they came from. So I kind of think with the Zara one, if it wasn't for the account handle and image, you would not really be able to tell this was a piece of Zara content even. So they hero the product rather than the brand that they came from, and you can easily see them slotting in anywhere in the funnel. And it's this kind of like multi-purpose content that we think is the future of marketing on social. So coming through to our final tactic, which is partnerships. So we want to take inspiration from brands like Maybelline, where the TikTok on the right came from, as a perfect example of product rather than brand and getting the hype. So this is literally a £10 mascara, but it went viral thanks to really clever partnerships and community content from Maybelline. So they seeded the mascara to beauty creators on TikTok, and this resulted in them getting 240 million views on the hashtag, and it actually led to coverage in mainstream press. I think this is a really easy win if you have a great product that is going to impress users. If you have that, you could use TikTok Creator Marketplace to select creators who not only align well with your brand, but also have your desired target audience, and reach out to them about collaborations. One thing to bear in mind when briefing creators on TikTok rather than influencers on Instagram is to keep the brief super loose, which might feel unnatural, but the reason being is that TikTok creators go viral and get this engagement because of their like raw, authentic personality and how well it comes through in their TikToks. And when you are too heavy-handed or prescriptive with your brief, you kind of lose this element of authenticity, and you take away their ability to put their own spin on it. And the end result will likely be that that TikTok won't perform as well as the other TikToks that they have, and it won't be a brilliant spend of your money. So that's a really important thing to consider. Shameless plug of the Social First brand. There is a whole section on it about building with community. So if this is something that you're interested in, I'd 100% recommend checking that section out, or watching the webinar on that. So again, I think this piece of content could exist anywhere in the funnel, and it has this kind of multi-purpose, fluid feel that, as I've said, unlocks results both from a brand building perspective and a conversion driving perspective as well. These were the 3 principles of social commerce. I've taken you through frictionless experience, shopping as entertainment, and product integrated. I hope you found them useful. I think it's clear that there is crossover between them, and that some of the examples I've shown today lean into more than one. I think that's really important. So the brands that will win in this space will do some degree of all 3. They'll also have an open mindset about the funnel and think about content and the purpose that it plays fluidly.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. That was great. I think it very much feels to us that social is both driving and supporting that shift in behavior to online purchasing, and that social commerce offers a new opportunity or a new way to view the funnel, and along with all of the benefits that you guys have chatted through. I think for us, the 3 takeaways that we think are worth musing on and considering when looking at your own strategies is, I guess, really considering social commerce as that frictionless e-commerce experience, and really considering the power that holds if you think about yourself as a consumer, and almost on the complete opposite side, the opportunity that it offers to help with brand building as well. So looking at some of those examples that Emily shared, I think it's so clear that the brands that are doing it well are doing it to also show personality, brand interest, humor, and where they're culturally relevant. And I think the final thing from our side is that there is such a huge array of formats and tactics across all of the different platforms that you can deploy, that our advice is to think about them as integrated, and to test as many as you can while remaining social first in the content that you're producing. So I've already got some great questions that have come through that I'm going to chuck over to Liam and Emily, but of course do ping them into the chat if you've got any more. So kicking us off, Liam, I think you'll have a good view on this, on the creators point that Emily touched on in the Maybelline example. How do you change your approach to selecting creators when thinking about social commerce? Is it different? Are there other considerations that people need to be aware of if they're already doing kind of influencer or creator activity elsewhere?
Yeah, no, nice. I think, as Emily kind of alluded to, I think with creators generally across the board, really, not just from a social commerce sense, it's best if, as you're briefing them, you're working collaboratively with them on that brief. So you don't really want to be too prescriptive. So I would really recommend choosing people who feel like a natural fit with your brand, because ultimately they're going to become a bit of a spokesperson for that brand. So you don't want to be too like, this is how you need to do the content. You want to get a sense of what their content is like and feel like your brand can naturally fit into that. And then I think, from the examples we've seen, with the likes of live shopping and bits and pieces like that, you probably are looking at more people who can kind of have that, I guess, almost like presenter-like quality, and will be, I guess, front and center of the content. It's not going to be simply like product shots. So that's something to bear in mind too.
Amazing. Thanks. And then good question around, how does social commerce work when it comes to high ticket items? So cars or things that feel like they've got a higher barrier to entry. I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels like Gucci shoes might be a high ticket item, but any advice on that? Any changes that we need to take into account?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, exactly. Gucci shoes are a kind of high ticket item that you might not have thought about selling through directly through social before, but I think it's exactly what I said about removing one of the barriers to purchase. So high ticket items potentially require, well, we know that they require a much higher level of consideration than purchasing lower ticket items. So it's just adding in this step that allows people to spend, something like this AR filter does allow someone to spend more time with this high ticket item, and whilst they potentially may not drive through and purchase directly from that piece of content, so we wouldn't be driving sales in such like a direct manner, I think that it would go some way to pushing them further down the purchase journey. I don't think it's going to be for every high ticket item, but if you can think creatively about the questions or the qualms that people might have about your product before they're purchasing, and think of like fun, interactive ways to address these, then I absolutely think that social commerce could be a way to be pushing them closer to that conversion.
Brilliant, nice. And I think that actually leads perfectly into a question for Liam, which I guess is more centered around creative strategy of social commerce. So question around, how do you apply, like those are quite shiny brand examples, how would you apply this to something that has less shine or appeal? I don't have the type of brand in the question, so I can't give you a specific sector, but think not jewelry, think not trainers.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. This question kind of comes up a lot, and I think naturally we gravitate towards those examples from the shinier brands that I guess can often feel like they go hard on innovation and dive into these trends quite early on. But I think we see time and time again that actually, some brands and content themes that you wouldn't necessarily think would do really well on social and jump out and get huge traction are, some of the more niche products or niche areas. I think it's just about like knowing who your audience is and how you can kind of appeal to them. There was that really good example of I think it was the Toronto Museum that has this huge following on TikTok, which just shows you that like these communities are out there. You just need to lean into them.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of my favorite and now iconic born social brands is our head of strategy, Essie, became obsessed with a rug cleaning company on social, who is probably, up there with one of the least mass appealing bits of content, but it was completely addictive, and I think they approached it in a really human, really humorous way. And you had 16-year-olds obsessed with rug cleaning in the same way they're all now obsessed with Le Creuset. So I guess general advice about thinking beyond maybe what you know about your creative and what currently resonates across other platforms. Emily Evans, tough question that everyone wants the answer to. What is our view on, I guess, the long-term impact on iOS 14? Have we seen anything or any indicators beyond what Liam touched on at the beginning that kind of suggests what we should be doing about it?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had the answer to this question. I think that we are all still feeling out iOS 14 and the impact that it will have long term. I think that it's worth noting that advertising and social media marketing have gone through various of these changes in the past, and it's always kind of been okay and leveled out. I do think that with iOS 14 and potentially the reduction in being able to do this kind of laser targeting, and potentially, like your lookalike audiences and things like that losing the power that they once had, this makes all of the stuff that we've spoken about even more important. So the importance of like brilliant creative that's going to cut through when you potentially don't have the chance to target this like super granular audience. It means we're going to have to be thinking more cleverly about entertaining creative than ever. But I think it's still too early to say the long-term impact of iOS 14, but we're watching it very closely at Born.
Nice. Thank you. And I slightly left field, but probably ties into the live shopping experience that you were talking about. We've got a question around, are Instagram lives still relevant with that kind of world opening up and us all kind of, I'm sure now currently desperate to get outside and see some sunshine? What do we think that consumer behavior will look like? Do we have any early indicators of kind of what formats people will forget about and which ones they'll continue with?
Do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, sorry.
It is a brilliant point. Obviously, the pandemic did render us all stuck inside our houses for about a year, meaning that we did have more time to consume this kind of content, but like early indicators are that we are still, it's kind of, our behavior was already changing and it's kind of accelerated this. And I think that some elements of that social behavior will be here to stay. So we've talked a lot in Born about social being our kind of third place when we didn't have one of those throughout the pandemic. And I think that the way that we consume this content and the appetite for longer form, more immersive stuff is sticking around. Obviously, it's going to have to be good content, it's going to have to be engaging, but like I said, those, and like Liam said, those shopping behaviors of like turning to online are continuing, that is continuing to trend upwards, which means there's still going to be this need for, I guess, desire to see products in use in this kind of, I guess, QVC style that we're starting to see on the platform. So I think it's absolutely going to be sticking around, at least in the near future.
Brilliant. And then Liam wondered if you could help someone out. It's a question around, I guess, multifunctional product lines. So what I'm understanding from this, Jill, sorry if this is not what you mean, but I guess more complexity to product line, lots of different products, potentially different messages. What would our advice be around how you create creative communication that feels simple and easily understandable for an audience through social commerce?
I guess what I'd say to that is that the beauty in social is that you don't have to put all of your eggs in the basket of one piece of content. You know, you've got the ability to put lots of different things out over weeks, months for relatively low cost. So I would say that you have a versatility with social in that you can showcase different products in different ways, potentially even across different platforms. You know, I think it's about kind of identifying what your content strategy is and how you go about doing that. But yeah, I would say social leans quite well into that because it is so versatile.
Almost that idea, I guess, of different audiences can be served different messages with different creative to almost, I guess, not give yourself a headache of trying to expect them to understand all of it in one go, but think strategically about who you're talking to, about what, and ultimately what messages work, I guess.
Exactly. And, you know, testing and learning, you know, that's, again, the beauty of social. You can test different things with different audiences and see what works well.
Brilliant. And then final question, I don't know, a couple of questions actually around like whether certain audience groups, i.e. age groups or demographics, respond better to this type of content and shopping experience than others. Have we got any insight on, obviously we can see all the platforms are putting a good shift in to get themselves set up, any audiences that we can see that are responding better than others?
Yeah, nice question. I don't have specific demographic data on this, but I think the term like social commerce and all the different formats that I took you guys through as examples, it's super broad. So I don't think you necessarily, you know, if your audience isn't Gen Z, you don't have to be like, oh, social commerce isn't for me. You know, potentially things like a Gucci shoe AR try-on filter for Snapchat. Can imagine that is quite appealing for like 25s and under. Equally, this, you know, Instagram shopping live experience kind of feels similar, but a bit of like fresher, updated version of like QVC or like television shopping. So I think that you can think creatively, whatever your demographic, and come up with a piece of like social commerce that leans into that demographic rather than social commerce as a whole, you know, being more for one than the other.
Yeah, definitely. I think we saw, we did an event probably around this time last year around TikTok, and we were reporting on that, adoption of that platform in the 35 pluses and even the 65 pluses. And the worry then was they're all going to drop off and it's a fad, and this time next year they won't be there, but they are. And each of those demographics is growing. So I think sometimes we're quite quick to say this will be gone quickly. So yeah, I'm with you. I think figure out what do we think is going to be here to stay, and test with that. Amazing. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thanks. And Liam, really, really useful. If we didn't get around to a question or the answer that you got wasn't quite specific enough for you, please drop us an email, shout@bornsocial.co.uk, and we can get back to you. Slides and recording will be sent round to the email that you signed up to this session with, and of course, as mentioned, head over to our blog if you haven't watched or didn't join the previous sessions in this series. Go and catch up on them there, and yeah, give us a shout if you've got any questions. And other than that, enjoy your Thursday, enjoy some sun, and have a lovely bank holiday. And thanks for joining.